Assalamu alaikum. I'm Talat Suhail. I welcome you all to Virtual University's program on personality psychology. Dear students, today we are going to begin with a very fabulous, a very interesting topic, and that is personality appraisal, personality assessment, personality measurement. जनाब बहुत दिलचस्प मौजू है आज के लेक्चर का. You will certainly enjoy it. But before beginning with this lecture number 44, let us recap what we did in lecture number 43. Very briefly, now we went through three forces in psychology. उसमें जनाब हमने पहले कहा कि the first force is psychodynamic और the psychoanalytic model, और focus उसमें जो है वो intrapsychic theories की तरफ है, जिसमें फ्रॉइड की थ्योरी है, यूंग की थ्योरी है, कैरन हॉनी की थ्योरी है, एरिक एरिक्सन की थ्योरी है. So the first force in psychology refers to psychodynamic, psychoanalytic or the intrapsychic theories in personality psychology. The second force refers to behaviorism or behavioristic model, and the focus is on Dollard and Miller's theory of personality, Skinner's theory of personality, Bandura's social learning theory of personality. इसके अलावा आपको जितना काम मिलता है, जिसमें पेवलॉफ भी है, वॉटसन भी है, थॉर्नडाइक भी है, टॉलमन भी है, गथरी एंड मैनी मैनी मोर who have contributed in the behavioristic model. So second force is behaviorism or behavioristic model. The third force refers to humanistic psychology, and the main focus is on Maslow's theory, Kelly's theory, Adler's theory, Rogers' theory, Allport's theory, Cattell's theory, and many more theories that you have done. So dear students, force number 1 reduces human beings to a level of animal, where the focus is on instincts, that human beings possess a set of instincts, life instincts, death instinct, and it appears as if we are a bunch of animals who are being controlled by a set of instincts. The second force, behaviorism, has reduced human beings to a level of stimulus and response, as if we are creatures who only respond to certain stimuli in our environment. So the second force has also reduced us to a level of animals. It is the humanistic psychology, the third force in psychology, which has restored some humanity, dignity, and some respect to all human beings, because the focus over here is on self-growth, self-esteem, self-actualization. That is, an individual is born with a set of potentials, and these potentials need expression, and one should work on them, develop them, enhance them. So basically it is the third force which has restored dignity and respect to all human beings. Dear students, that is as far as our lecture number 43 was concerned. So let us begin with this very fabulous, very interesting area, personality appraisal. Now, the question is in front of you, what are the goals or what are the purposes of personality appraisal? जनाब personality appraisal जो है उसके क्या goals हैं? So, personality appraisal has got a number of goals, such as personality assessment, personality measurement, and to have a closer study of the research methods, research designs that are used in personality psychology. तो जनाब पर्सनैलिटी अप्रेजल एक बहुत अहम एरिया पर्सनैलिटी साइकोलॉजी का, जिसका फोकस है ऑन मेजरिंग पर्सनैलिटी, assessing personality and trying to study the experimental designs that are being used in personality psychology. तो बहुत अहम एरिया. अब जब हम बात कर रहे हैं आपसे पर्सनैलिटी असेसमेंट की, तो देयर आर अ नंबर ऑफ सोर्सेज थ्रू विच पर्सनैलिटी साइकोलॉजिस्ट दे गैदर डाटा. नाउ दीज सोर्सेज ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन are number 1, the self-report data or the S data, the observer report data or the O data, the test data that is the T data, and the life outcome data or the L data. So basically we said that when we are assessing personality, we need a number of sources of information. तो जनाब बात आपसे हो रही है सोर्सेज ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन विच आर यूटिलाइज्ड इन असेसिंग ए पर्सनैलिटी, और हमने उसमें कहा सबसे पहली जो है वो इंडिविजुअल हिमसेल्फ, दैट इज सेल्फ रिपोर्ट डाटा, द एस डाटा, द ऑब्जर्वर रिपोर्ट डाटा और द ओ डाटा, द टेस्ट डाटा और द टी डाटा और द लाइफ आउटकम डाटा और द एल डाटा. Now when we are using all these sources of information, there are certain issues involved with these sources as well. For example, the first issue concerns with the information that you are getting through one source. Does it correlate? Does it provide the same set of information with another source? For example, I am getting a piece of information related to an individual about his personality and I am using the self-report data. I am studying dominance or leadership trait in an individual and I am getting information through the self-report data. Now, do I get the same set of information related to the same trait using the observer report data? So, if it's like that, then these two sources or a number of sources linked together and they provide consistent information. उसके अलावा है कि every source of data has got its advantages, has got its limitations. तो जहाँ पर हर source की कुछ अहमियत है, कुछ उसके पॉजिटिव पॉइंट्स हैं, वहीं पे उसकी कुछ लिमिटेशंस हैं. तो उसके पिटफॉल्स भी देखेंगे, उसकी लिमिटेशंस भी देखेंगे. जनाब जब पर्सनैलिटी मेजरमेंट की बात करेंगे आपसे, तो लेट मी टेक यू बैक टू लेक्चर नंबर 3. इन लेक्चर नंबर 3 वी डिड टॉक अबाउट वेरी ब्रीफली व्हाट इज पर्सनैलिटी मेजरमेंट. हमने आपसे कहा था कि साइकोलॉजिकल टेस्ट, पर्टिकुलरली पर्सनैलिटी टेस्ट, ऑब्जेक्टिव टेस्ट लाइक MMPI, MMPI-1 and MMPI-2, and then projective test और subjective test जिसमें रोशाक इंक ब्लॉट टेस्ट, TAT, RISP, HTP and many more personality projective personality tests are used. उसके बाद जब हम पर्सनैलिटी मेजरमेंट की बात करें थ्रू पर्सनैलिटी टेस्ट, so there are certain important things. For example, we got to have very good information about the personality measures that we are using. Are the measures which we are using, are they reliable? Are they valid? Can we generalize the results across genders, across different age groups, across different populations? So we'll evaluate these personality measures as well. तो जनाब बात आपसे बहुत तफसील में रहेगी पर्सनैलिटी असेसमेंट और पर्सनैलिटी मेजरमेंट. तीसरी चीज जिसके ऊपर हम आपसे बात करेंगे वो है जनाब रिलेटेड टू एक्सपेरिमेंटल डिजाइन्स यूज्ड इन पर्सनैलिटी साइकोलॉजी. हम फोकस करेंगे एक्सपेरिमेंटल डिजाइन्स पे, हम फोकस करेंगे कोरिलेशनल स्टडीज पे और केस स्टडी डिजाइन पे. 3 पे हमारा फोकस होगा जो कि एक्सटेंसिवली पर्सनैलिटी साइकोलॉजिस्ट इस्तेमाल करें. और उसके बाद हम ये देखेंगे we are going to evaluate all these things, sources of information, and of course research designs. और देखेंगे ये कि ये जो सारी sources of information related to personality, what do we get out of it? So let us begin with this very interesting topic, personality appraisal. Personality appraisal includes personality assessment, that is sources of personality data. Our first concern is that we get as much information about personality of the individual as possible. There are a number of sources of data that are available. Self-report data, S data, observer report data or O data, test data, that is T data, life outcome data or the L data. Personality assessment, self-report data. It is the most obvious, most common source of data about the person is self-report data or S data. The information that a person reveals or reports is based on a procedure such as a questionnaire or interview. The questionnaire can be structured or unstructured, which poses a series of questions to the person. The person's periodic reports or records that events as they happen. The respondent has to tell his feelings, emotions, desires, beliefs, fears, phobias, fantasies, and how the individual relates to others. Information about his long-term goals, about his self-concept, about his self-esteem. The self-report can take a number of forms such as unstructured, where the items require subjective answer, there is no right or wrong, and structured, that is the items have a binding or they bound you to a response yes, no or undecided. जनाब बात आपसे हो रही है sources of information related to personality assessment, and the first source of information is self-report data or the S data. The individual himself has to provide information about himself, how he feels, what his desires are. So he has to describe an event. So all the information we get through an individual himself. And what are the sources of information? Well, it can be a questionnaire, it can be an interview. Well, when we are using questionnaire or interview, whatever the source, it can be structured, it can be unstructured. जब मैं बात कर रही हूँ unstructured की, that is, there are going to be open-ended questions in which you respond to each question and there is no right or wrong answer. When I talk about structured question, well, the questionnaire has got such items which bind you towards a response in yes, no or undecided. So let's take an example. Example, unstructured open-ended questions. Tell me about yourself or tell me about the food you most prefer to eat. The psychologist must devise a way how to score, interpret and make sense out of the participants' responses. Example, structured or closed-ended questions. All the items have to be responded with yes, no or undecided options. I like fast food, I am an introvert and I believe in equal rights for women. There are advantages as well as limitations of the self-report methods, but the limitations are such as participants may not be honest or they may not be having accurate knowledge about themselves. Examples of self-report inventories are Neo Personality Inventory and California Personality Inventory. The latest increase in personality self-report research is called experience sampling, where people answer questions about their moods or physical symptoms every day for several weeks or even for more longer time using devices which are electronically operated. जनाब बात आपसे हो रही है सेल्फ रिपोर्ट डाटा की, उसमें हमने एग्जाम्पल लिए ऑफ द स्ट्रक्चर्ड आइटम्स एंड ऑफ द अनस्ट्रक्चर्ड आइटम्स. The unstructured item is where you respond with a subjective answer and there is no right or wrong answer and there is no binding on you, fixing you towards a response. In structured items, whatever the items are, you have to respond either with yes, no or undecided. So we are fixing you, we bound you towards a response. जनाब जो भी सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस होंगे, द पर्पस इज टू प्रोवाइड एज मच इंफॉर्मेशन अबाउट द इंडिविजुअल एज पॉसिबल. और एग्जाम्पल हमने उसमें न्यू पर्सनैलिटी इन्वेंट्री और CPI कैलिफोर्निया पर्सनैलिटी इन्वेंट्री करी. हमने ये कहा कि सेल्फ रिपोर्ट डेटा में जो लेटेस्ट कंट्रीब्यूशन है दैट इज रिलेटिंग विद एक्सपीरियंस सैम्पलिंग, दैट इज an individual has to report his moods, has to report some physical symptoms related to a particular disorder or pathology for several weeks over a longer period of time by devices which are electronically operated. So this is one source of data which is used extensively in providing information about the person. Personality assessment, second source, observer report data or the O data. We usually form impressions and make evaluations of people with whom we come into contact. So for each individual there are at least dozens and dozens of observers who form impressions. All the potential sources of information about personalities in form of impressions come from our family, relatives, neighbors, employers, teachers, friends, acquaintances. Virtually each and every person you come across. So observer report data capitalize on all these resources and provide tools for gathering information about person's personality. Example, I am a teacher and I form impressions about my student. Similarly, my students form variety of impressions about me by closely observing me in different situations. So second important source of data is observer report data. Now, you should keep in mind that people are observing you, and by observing you, they form an impression about you. Now, these impressions come through your family, your relatives, your friends, your teachers, your acquaintances. Virtually from every individual that you come into contact forms an impression about you. So I'm a teacher, my students have impressions about me because they observe me in different situations. Similarly, I observe and I make a lot of impressions about my students. So observer report data is that on the basis of observation, you form impressions about the personality of the individual. Observer report data has both advantages as well as disadvantages as sources of personality. One advantage is that observers can have access to information not attainable through other resources. For example, what sort of impression an individual makes on others, his or her social reputation, whether interactions with others are smooth or turbulent, what position an individual holds in the group hierarchy. Inter-rater reliability. The use of multiple observers allows the investigators to evaluate the degree of consensus among the observers. Dear students, there are advantages and as well as disadvantages related to observer report data. Advantages ये हैं कि वो information जो आपको और किसी source से नहीं मिल रही होती है, वो observer report data से मिल जाती है. Second important thing is that we can use multiple number of observers and get inter-rater reliability. That is, different observers can pool in their observation and we can average out the rating. So we use inter-rater reliability. There are many dimensions along which the observer report data differ and the personality psychologist should take them into account. Number one, the use of professional personality or intimate personality assessors, and number two, to use naturalistic or artificial setting for the observation to be made. Now both are very important decisions to be taken. Now in observer report data, Janab, there are two important issues. Number one, should we be using professional assessors or should we be using intimate assessors? दूसरी अहम चीज कि क्या हमें naturalistic observation के ऊपर focus करना चाहिए या artificial observation या जिसे आप laboratory observation कहते हैं उसके ऊपर focus करना चाहिए. Now both of these two issues are very important and these decisions are critical ones. Number one, the use of professional personality assessors or intimate observers. So we can use professional personality assessors who do not know the participant in advance. A second method is to gather observational data from people who actually know the participant, such as close friends, spouse, mother, and roommates. The advantage of intimate personality assessors are following. They are in a better position to observe the target's natural behavior as compared to the professional personality assessors. Number 2, multiple social personalities can be assessed. Now each of us displays a different side of ourselves to different people. Example of multiple social personality: I am kind to my friends, loving towards my students, but very rude and inconsiderate towards my subordinates. My student is very respectful towards me, but has sharp conflicts with parents. So dear students, we are talking to you about the use of professional personality assessors or intimate personality assessors. जनाब प्रोफेशनल पर्सनैलिटी असेसर्स जो हैं वो इंडिविजुअल है who does not know that particular person who's being observed. So he'll remain neutral and he is going to make an objective assessment of the behavior. इंटीमेट पर्सनैलिटी असेसर्स का सबसे बड़ा एडवांटेज ये है कि द पर्सन मे नॉट नो दैट ही इज बीइंग assessed, he is being observed. His roommate, his family member, maybe a mother, maybe a brother, maybe a sister can make the observation. So we can get a very natural piece of information that is coming. दूसरी तरफ इंटीमेट पर्सनैलिटी असेसमेंट का डिसएडवांटेज ये है कि व्हेन आई नो समबडी, आई एम फ्रेंडली विद समबडी, I am going to make a biased assessment. I am going to highlight the positive aspects of that individual's personality and I am going to ignore the negative aspects. उसके बाद जनाब एक और है मल्टीपल सोशल पर्सनैलिटी का इशू. Now we display different set of personalities towards different people. I am very kind towards my family. I am loving towards my students. But I can be very inconsiderate and very rude towards my subordinates. और जो अक्सर होता है कि पेरेंट्स कंप्लेन करते हैं कि योर स्टूडेंट इज वेरी ओबीडियंट, वेरी गुड विद यू, बट विद अस द चाइल्ड इज वेरी टर्बुलेंट, इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट, इज वेरी अग्रेसिव. सो दैट इज multiple social personalities. That is, we display a different personality to different people. To use naturalistic or artificial setting for observation to be made, in the naturalistic observation, the observers witness and record the events that occur in normal course of lives of the participants. We can observe a student for the entire day at school or at home or in the bus, in the canteen. The advantages are that we can have first-hand and natural piece of observation of the person. But the limitation is that we do not have any control over the whole event that is taking place. Artificial settings, a student along with the whole class is asked to come to the laboratory and observations are made. We can initiate and generate an artificial piece of behavior. We can control the sequence of events that will take place. Dear students, the second important issue in observer report data concerns whether we are to use naturalistic observation or whether we are to use an artificial or a laboratory observation. When it comes to naturalistic observation, the advantage is you can initiate. When you are using naturalistic observation, you have a first-hand piece of information related to a behavior pattern, but you do not have any control over the sequence of events that will happen. तो एडवांटेज ये है आपका कि आपके पास फर्स्ट हैंड बिल्कुल नेचुरल पीस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन आ रही है रिलेटेड टू ए बिहेवियर पैटर्न, बट द डिसएडवांटेज इज यू डू नॉट हैव एनी कंट्रोल ओवर सीक्वेंस ऑफ इवेंट्स दैट विल हैपन. आप ऑब्जर्व कर सकते हैं नेचुरलिस्टिक ऑब्जर्वेशन मेथड से एक स्टूडेंट का बिहेवियर क्लासरूम में, कैंटीन पे, बस में, बाहर सड़क पे, इन द फील्ड, So you can have as much information as possible, but you do not have the control over sequence of events that are taking place. As far as artificial observation is or laboratory observation is concerned, well, the student along with whole of the class can be asked to come to the lab, and a behavior pattern can be initiated, artificially initiated, and it can be observed. But this piece of behavior will not be a natural one, it will be an artificially initiated one. The advantage is you will have control over sequence of events that will be happening. So dear students, that is as far as observer report data is concerned. Now let us talk about the third assessment technique, and that is test data or the T data. The individuals are placed in standardized testing situation. The situation is so designed to elicit behaviors that serve as indicators of personality variables. The individuals are placed in frustrating situations and different reactions are noted. The individuals are placed in situations and their leadership qualities are noted. Children are placed in designed situations and their responses are noted. All the above tests or situations are labeled or called as situational tests. जनाब बात आपसे हो रही है third source of information, and that is test data or the T data, and that is by placing individual in different standardized test situations and noting their responses, reactions, or how they behave. For example, we can put people into specially designed situations, frustrating situations, and note what their reactions are. We can place children in certain situations and note down what behaviors they exhibit. We can place individuals in specially designed situations and note their leadership qualities or abilities or traits. So basically, when we are putting people in standardized situations, in standardized tests, well, we are using the test data or the T data source of information. An interesting example is given by Murray in his book Assessment of Men. In the bridge building test over a small river, the person assessed is given two assistants and a collection of wood, rope, and tools. The person being assessed does not know that the two assistants are role-playing. One assistant as dumb or having low intelligence or unable to follow instructions. The other assistant as one who knows everything and he opposes the instructions being given to him. The concerned person may think that he is being assessed for leadership qualities, which actually he is being evaluated on tolerance of frustration and performance on adversity. तो जनाब आपके सामने एक निहायत दिलचस्प एग्जाम्पल which is given to us by Henry Murray in his book Assessment of Men. Now, the target individual is assigned to build a bridge over a small creek or river, and he is provided with two assistants with materials such as rope, tools, and wood, and he actually has to give instructions to these two assistants. He himself is not to build that bridge over the small creek, but he has to make the two assistants work. Now these two assistants are actually role playing, or you can say they are team members of the psychologist. Now one assistant plays as if he is dumb, he is of low intelligence, or is unable to follow instructions. On the other hand, the other assistant plays the role that he knows everything, and he in fact objects to the instructions that are given to him, and he even at times is critical. Now this is a very interesting example where we put an individual in a typical situation and it appears as if his leadership quality is being measured. On the other hand, the most important characteristic that the concerned individual is being evaluated on tolerance of frustration or performance under adverse conditions. So उसको ये महसूस होता है कि उसकी शायद लीडरशिप क्वालिटी या ट्रेड जो है वो मेजर हो रही है, जबकि हम मेजर ये कर रहे हैं, उसको एवेलुएट कर रहे हैं, असेस कर रहे हैं फॉर हिज टॉलरेंस टुवर्ड्स फ्रस्ट्रेशन, एंड नंबर 2, हाउ वेल कैन ही परफॉर्म अंडर एडवर्स कंडीशंस. जब हालात अच्छे होते हैं तो हम सब बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्म करते हैं, बट व्हाट अबाउट when there are adverse conditions, can we still perform better? So that is the important trait that is being measured. Megargi's study, the study on manifestations of dominance, and he wanted to study the effect of dominance on leadership. Dear students, there is another also very detailed example of Megargi's study, which is on the trait of dominance and its impact or effect on leadership. It's a very long, lengthy study which is provided with a detailed write-up in your Word document. The focus is basically on studying the effect of dominance on leadership. Do go through it. It's very interesting. Limitations of the test data. The participants might try to guess what trait is being measured and might try to create an impression. The real difficulty is in verifying how the research participants are defining the situation, and failure to confirm the similarity and correspondence between the researcher and the participant may lead to error. Another problem is that in the most T data experiments, the situations are inherently interpersonal, and the researcher may influence the participants. When an experimenter is very friendly, he may elicit more cooperation from the participants than another experimenter who's cold or aloof. जनाब, बात आपसे हो रही है दो चीज़ों की, और उसमें हमने कहा कि बाज़ वक़ात in T data the client or the subject may guess what trait is being measured, और वो अपना एक बहुत अच्छा इम्प्रेशन बनाने के लिए, रिसर्चर को प्लीज करने के लिए उस ट्रेड की एक रॉन्ग किस्म की इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइड करना शुरू कर देते हैं. नंबर 2, हाउ द रिसर्च सिचुएशन इज बीइंग डिफाइंड बाय द researcher as well as by the client. There should be correspondence and similarity between the two. Otherwise, these two sources of error can creep in. जनाब, जब भी हम टेस्ट डाटा की बात करते हैं तो इसमें बहुत सारी मैकेनिकल डिवाइसेस आप इस्तेमाल करते हैं. Whenever we are using the test data, we can employ a number of mechanical devices. Personality psychologists have adapted the technological innovations in study of personality. The use of actometer, it is a modified self-minding watch which is usually strapped to arms or legs to assess the personality differences in activity level or energy levels. The actometer device is usually used with children who are highly active to have a clear idea of the hyperactivity level. At times, the actometer scores are correlated with the teacher rating of the same behavior pattern. तो जनाब, बाज़ वक़ात ऐसे होता है कि आप एक ऐसी invention, technologically advanced invention such as an actometer can be strapped on the arm or on the leg of the child to measure hyperactivity level. अब जो actometer की ratings आ रही हैं उसको आप correlate करते हैं, combine करते हैं टीचर रेटिंग के साथ और देखते हैं कि इन दोनों डिवाइसेस में कितना कोरिलेशन है. Physiological data. The physiological measures provide excellent source of data related to the person. They refer to person's reaction to stimuli and the speed at which the person takes the new information. Sensors can be placed on different parts of the body to measure activity of sympathetic nervous system, blood pressure, heartbeat, muscle contraction activity. Psychologist Christopher Patrick has studied the psychopaths, particularly men who have committed serious crimes against people, particularly violent crimes. Things that make most people anxious may not make psychopaths anxious. In order to test this idea, a technique called the eye blink startle reflex was used. Patrick noted that the psychopaths who were in prison for violent crimes did not exhibit the faster eye blink response while viewing the anxiety-producing photographs, suggesting that they were not feeling the same level of fearfulness as normal participants viewing these objects. Perhaps psychopaths commit their crimes because they don't have the same normal level of anxiety or guilt that prevents most of us from doing anything wrong. जनाब दूसरा हमारे पास है फिजियोलॉजिकल मेजर और जिसमें है जी आई ब्लिंक स्टार्टल रिफ्लेक्स रिस्पॉन्स. नाउ दिस वाज यूज्ड बाय क्रिस्टोफर पैट्रिक एंड ही वाज ट्राइंग टू मेजर द आई ब्लिंक स्टार्टल रिस्पॉन्स of psychopaths who were involved in violent crimes. जनाब तरीक़ाकार ये था कि साइकोपैथ्स को कुछ मूवीज, कुछ फिल्म स्ट्रिप्स दिखाई गई ऑफ पीपल और ऑब्जेक्ट्स और पीपल अंडर एंग्शियस सिचुएशंस, और देखा ये गया कि जो साइकोपैथ्स की आई ब्लिंक स्टार्टल रिस्पॉन्स है वो उतना तेज नहीं है या उस तरह का नहीं है जितना नॉर्मल सब्जेक्ट्स का है. That means that psychopaths are somehow less anxious and they are less, let's say, caring towards the crime they commit towards people. एक और source of physiological data जो हमारे पास आती है वो आती है functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI. A recent physiological data source comes from functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, a technique used to identify the areas of the brain that light up when certain tasks such as verbal problems or spatial navigation is taking place. जनाब बात आपसे हो रही है फिजियोलॉजिकल डाटा की, और फिजियोलॉजिकल सोर्स ऑफ डाटा हमें मिल रहा है एक तो आई ब्लिंक स्टार्टल रिस्पॉन्स एंड देन functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI. Then there is another source of information that we are getting and that is through projective techniques. जनाब प्रोजेक्टिव डिवाइसेस हैं हमारे पास बहुत सी जिसमें बहुत सारे साइकोलॉजिकल टेस्ट हैं. Now the basic philosophy is that providing the individual with a set of vague stimuli, and these vague stimuli can be pictures, they can be ink blots, or they can be let's say different cards, and the purpose is to make the individual respond to these vague or structured stimuli, because when you respond to vague stimuli you tend to project your needs, your wishes, your desires on one of the character in the picture card or in the ink blot, and you try to project your personality. अब जनाब जब प्रोजेक्टिव पर्सनैलिटी टेस्ट की बात आती है तो दे आर क्वाइट कंट्रोवर्शियल बट दे आर वाइडली यूज, और इसमें रोशाक इंक ब्लॉट टेस्ट है, थीमेटिक ए परसेप्शन टेस्ट है TAT, हाउस ट्री पर्सन और HTP, एंड रॉटर्स इनकम्प्लीट सेंटेंस ब्लैंक RISB. When it comes to Rorschach ink blot test, this was devised by Swiss psychologist Hermann Rorschach. It consists of 10 standardized ink blot cards, and some of the cards are colored and some are in black and white, and the purpose is to make the person respond with as many cards as possible. Card उसके हाथ में दे दिया जाता है and he can give a number of responses related to the structure, related to details, whether he sees movement in the cards or not. The purpose is to see what conflicts, what impulses the person has and how many impulses, desires, wishes can he project on those cards. Then we have got thematic apperception test, TAT. There are some 31 picture cards, 30 are with pictures and 1 is a blank card. Now the person is given the card, he can see the card for 5 minutes, then he is to write a story related with the characters in the picture card, who they are, what they are doing, and very important thing, the story should have a beginning, a middle part and an end. तो पर्पस ये है कि द person usually identifies with the main character, with the hero in the picture card, and projects all his desires, wishes, impulses on that character, on the hero. Then we have got Rotter's incomplete sentence blank. Well, there are some 40 incomplete items or stems, and they relate to the general life of an individual, the sexual life of an individual, the family life of an individual. This particular test is a very valuable test, and it provides a lot of information about the person. This test has got qualitative as well as quantitative scoring procedures. जनाब उसके बाद हमारे पास एक fully projective test, completely projective test, and that is HTP, House 3 person. Now, the person is told right in the beginning that this is not a test of artistic ability. He has to draw a picture of a house, a tree, and two persons, that is a male and a female. Now, all the three pictures are related with three different aspects of his personality, and this particular test is very revealing, and it leads to an important source of information about the personality. Dear students, that is as far as our test data or T data is concerned. Now let us talk about life outcome data or L data. Life outcome data, L data. The L data serve as an important source of information about the personality. Personality characteristics measured in early life are often linked to important life outcomes several decades later. You can say that work, marriage, separation, divorce, and termination from job are manifestations of personalities. So, fourth source of important information is life outcome data, that is related with significant life events that an individual goes through. That is his marriage, his divorce, his separation, termination from work, what impact it has on the individual. So they are another source of important information about the personality assessment. Issues in personality assessment. There are two issues in the area of personality assessment. The issue of links among various data sources and the issue of fallibility of personality measurement. The issue of link among various data sources depends heavily on the research question being posed. A strong agreement between two sources of data leads the researchers to be confident that their alternative measures are tapping into the same personality phenomena, while lack of strong commitment on the other hand may mean that different sources are assessing different personality phenomena. The issue of fallibility of personality measurement, the exercise to overcome each data source problems or pitfalls that limits its utility, leads us to triangulation. It means that if a particular effect is found, thus the same effect when measured with the self-report as well as with the observer reports is the same. Examples, suppose you are measuring the effect of dominance on leadership. Now, does the effect occur when the trait of dominance is measured with self-report as well as with another method of observer reports? जनाब बात आपसे हो रही है और बहुत तफसील से हो रही है इश्यूज रिलेटेड टू पर्सनैलिटी असेसमेंट, जिसमें से पहला है लिंक, द इशू ऑफ लिंक्स, दैट इज इंफॉर्मेशन gathered from one source of personality assessment, does it link or connect with information with another source of personality assessment? अगर ऐसा है तो correspondence है दोनों में and that is excellent. और अगर if one source of information, now we say there are pitfalls or limitations in every source of information. So if we can overcome these pitfalls, we can overcome these pitfalls by using the technique of triangulation. एक टेक्निक इस्तेमाल करें, उसमें जो पिटफॉल्स हैं उसको ओवरकम करें दूसरी टेक्निक से, दूसरी टेक्निक में जो पिटफॉल्स हैं उसको ओवरकम करें तीसरे से, और जब एक ही चीज मेजर हो रही है एक से और दूसरे से, तो वी से वी आर मूविंग इन द राइट डायरेक्शन. जनाब पर्सनैलिटी मेजर्स की आपसे बात हुई, जिसमें हमने कहा कि ऑब्जेक्टिव पर्सनैलिटी टेस्ट हैं, MMPI है, CPI है, उसके अलावा हमने कहा प्रोजेक्टिव पर्सनैलिटी टेस्ट हैं जिसमें रोशाक इंक ब्लॉट टेस्ट है, TAT है, RISB है, HTP. Now when it comes to these personality measures should be evaluated. They should be having reliability, validity and generalizability. So what are these standards or norms? A personality measure is considered to be reliable when demonstrated through test-retest reliability, split half reliability or internal consistency or inter-rater reliability. बात आपसे हो रही है जनाब मेजर्स और स्टैंडर्ड्स यूज इन एवेलुएटिंग पर्सनैलिटी मेजर्स, जिसमें हमने कहा सबसे पहला है वैलिडिटी. इज द टेस्ट मेजरिंग व्हाट इट हैज बीन डिजाइन टू मेजर? ऑल पर्सनैलिटी टेस्ट शुड मेजर पर्सनैलिटी. दूसरी बात ये कि जो इंफॉर्मेशन आपको एक टेस्ट में से एक दफा मिली है वही इंफॉर्मेशन उसी टेस्ट में से दूसरी दफा भी मिलनी चाहिए, देन इट इज रिलायबल. रिलायबिलिटी के भी बहुत सारे मेजर्स हैं ना. रिलायबिलिटी बहुत तरीके से आप मेजर कर सकते हैं. टेस्ट रीटेस्ट रिलायबिलिटी है, अल्टरनेट फॉर्म रिलायबिलिटी है, स्प्लिट हाफ रिलायबिलिटी है, इंटर रेटर रिलायबिलिटी है. सो अ मेजर इज रिलायबल जब वो इनमें से किसी एक तरीके से उसकी रिलायबिलिटी मेजर हो, देन इट इज कंसिडर्ड टू बी ए साउंड वैलिड मेजर. तीसरा हमने कहा जनरलाइजेबिलिटी. The third important norm of evaluating a personality measure is generalizability. It is the degree to which the measure retains its validity across various contexts. Is a measure equally good across various age groups, genders, cultures or different conditions? हमने कहा कि जब भी पर्सनैलिटी मेजर आप इस्तेमाल करें उसको 3 क्राइटेरियाज पे एवेलुएट कीजिए, असेस कीजिए. नंबर 1, first is the criteria of validity. It should be measuring what it has been designed to measure. Number 2, reliability. It should give consistent results. Number 3, generalizability. जो कुछ भी आपने measure किया है, is it valid across, let's say, different age groups, across different genders, across different cultures? So the third thing is generalizability. Now, a personality measure which fully follows the criteria of validity, reliability and generalizability is a, let's say, good tool of personality measurement. Research designs used in personality: experimental methods, correlational method, case studies method. Each design has its advantages and its limitations. Dear students, we are beginning with a very important component, and that is research designs used in personality psychology, experimental designs, correlational designs, case study design. हर डिज़ाइन के अपने advantages हैं और limitations हैं. Experimental designs, they are typically used in determining causality. Variable A causes variable B or vice versa. So in order to establish the influence of one variable on another, the key requirements of sound experimental design must be met, which are following. Number 1, manipulation of one or more variables. Number 2, ensuring that participants in each experimental condition, experimental or control group, are at the equivalent level at the beginning of the study. And number 3, random assignments of the subjects to ensure that the two groups have same characteristics in the population. जनाब पहला डिज़ाइन एक्सपेरिमेंटल डिज़ाइन जो डिटर्मन करता है कॉजेलिटी, इज वेरिएबल ए कॉजिंग वेरिएबल बी और इज इट वेरिएबल बी विच इज कॉजिंग वेरिएबल ए, वट एवर द केस. जब भी हम चाहते हैं कि एक साउंड एक्सपेरिमेंट कंडक्ट करें तो उसके लिए 3 कंडीशंस जो हैं वो फुलफिल होने बहुत जरूरी हैं. नंबर 1, मैनिपुलेशन ऑफ द वेरिएबल. इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल एक है, उसको आप कैसे मैनिपुलेट करेंगे, उसे कितना इंक्रीज करेंगे, डिक्रीज करेंगे. सो फर्स्ट थिंग इज manipulation of the variable, independent variable. Number 2, the subjects in the 2 conditions, that is the subjects in the experimental group and in the control group are at the same level at the beginning of the study. So दूसरा condition कि आपने जो experimental group और control group में subjects लिए they are at the same level at the beginning of the study. Number 3, there should be random assignments of the subjects. हमें चाहिए कि subjects को randomly assign करें in experimental group, in control group, और random assignment जो है that ensures that all the characteristics of the population are going to be fully reflected in the two samples of the experimental group, of the control group. Correlational studies. The correlational studies, as the name shows, measures the relationship between two or more variables. The 3 things that are important in correlational studies are: number 1, magnitude of relationship, number 2, direction of relationship, and number 3, correlations can never prove the causality. जनाब, दूसरा हमारे पास डिज़ाइन कोरिलेशनल स्टडीज़, और कोरिलेशनल स्टडीज़ में हमारा फोकस है कि टू मेजर द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन टू वेरिएबल्स. इसमें हम मैग्नीट्यूड देखते हैं ऑफ रिलेशनशिप, डायरेक्शन देखते हैं, लेकिन कोरिलेशनल स्टडी बिल्कुल नहीं स्टैब्लिश करती है कि कौन सा वेरिएबल जो है वो कॉजल फैक्टर. Third design, the case study design, and the case study design is an in-depth design of studying one single individual across different situations. We can interview the person, we can question the person, we can observe the person. So case study is actually an in-depth study of an individual. जनाब, आज का जो हमारा लेक्चर रहा उसमें हमने सबसे पहले सोर्सेज ऑफ पर्सनैलिटी इंफॉर्मेशन ली, जिसमें हमने सोर्सेज ऑफ डाटा लिए. नंबर 2, वी टॉक्ड अबाउट द limitations and advantages of each source of information, of data collection of related to personality. तीसरी बात हमने जो की आपसे वो रिसर्च डिज़ाइंस की, एक्सपेरिमेंटल डिज़ाइन, कोरिलेशनल डिज़ाइन, केस स्टडी डिज़ाइन. लेट्स evaluate जितने sources. Now please try to make an idea in your mind. There are no perfect sources of data collection. Number 2, there are no perfect experimental designs. Number 3, it's always better to use information from a number of sources, pool them together and get as much information related to person as possible. Dear students, today we have talked with you about personality appraisal. हमने देखा personality appraisal क्या है, जिसमें पर्सनैलिटी असेसमेंट, पर्सनैलिटी मेजरमेंट और जनाब रिसर्च डिज़ाइंस की बात हुई आपसे, जिसमें एक्सपेरिमेंटल डिज़ाइन, कोरिलेशनल डिज़ाइन, केस स्टडी डिज़ाइन, और हमने बाद में एवेलुएट किया कि देयर आर नो परफेक्ट सोर्सेज ऑफ डाटा कलेक्शन, देयर आर नो परफेक्ट एक्सपेरिमेंटल डिज़ाइंस, research designs available, and it's always better to get information from a number of sources, pool them together and get as much information related to a person as possible. I hope you have enjoyed listening to this lecture as much as I have enjoyed talking to you about personality appraisal. Please go through the PowerPoint slides and the Word document that is available on the web page of your course Personality Psychology. Do write to us if you have a question. We would love to respond to your question. Take very good care of yourself. Hope to see you in our next lecture. Up till then, it's Khuda Hafiz from Virtual University Studio.